Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is June 5th, 2024, and you are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. So welcome, everybody. Today we got Jyunmi, Andy, Beth, and I'm Brian. And today's Wednesday, which means that we are here to talk about the news. Now, if you're keeping track with the way we usually do this is we will talk about news over the last 7 days. It's not an exact science, but basically Wednesday to Wednesday is essentially what we'll pull into the news. And like there has been for most weeks this year in 2024, there is plenty of news to talk about. Lots of information from the big hitters, lots of, wind up to Apple's developer conference is coming up on Monday. So lots of, what's going to go on there. We already kind of covered that this week. NVIDIA's had new stuff come out. Claude had new stuff come out. Man, it was just when you look at the news feeds, it's just chock full of all sorts of really interesting stuff. One that I thought about you on, Jimmy, actually, and I don't know if you could talk about this if you have more on it than me, but Raspberry Pi. There is a thing about Raspberry. Do you have that, Andy? Who wants to talk about that? Because I think that's a cool one to start with.
Sure. Yeah. Let me talk about that. So we've been talking in general about the progression of capabilities as model sizes shrink and as processors get more efficient. How does this imply a move towards smaller and smaller devices having AI built into them? And Jyunmi frequently says, I'm just waiting for when I can add AI to my Raspberry Pi. Now, for those who don't know, Raspberry Pi is a little board, basically, that has a full microcomputer on it. And it comes with lots of different kits. And you can build things together around this sort of central computer to do all kinds of things. It's kind of a hacker / kit builder kind of thing for makers, but it's also deployed. It's a framework for computing that's deployed in lots of different applications. So they partnered with a company called Hailo, Hailo, for an AI kit, which is a chip basically that you can add to your Raspberry Pi, and it's an accelerator that is AI focused. Now, it's pretty fast. It can do 13 teraflops per second. That is a huge, fast little thing. Now, by comparison, it's a quarter of the power of Intel's new Lunar Lake processors.
Right.
Okay, so it's a really powerful AI chip that you can put right onto this little kit. And, this is a part of a very important trend because most AI operations today run on the cloud. In order to go out to the cloud and pick up the power that's in those data centers that are designed especially to run all the multiple NVIDIA boxes, basically much larger than a Raspberry Pi, that represent one H100 chip. Okay, it's a big thing. It has its own cooling and everything. Well, so anyway, this would allow you to do AI operations and in effect, train your own system using a Raspberry Pi board.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. I want it. It only costs $70.
Yeah.
It's part of that extension system that they call ACT, hardware attached on top. You literally put it on top of the board. Super cute. But yeah, it's only $70, and it's a specific AI accelerator. This is what I've been asking for it. Yes,
you called it.
I know.
AI at the edge, right? This is what we talked about. What, a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, when we talked about
exactly
AI and the edge.
And that's who Hailo, or that's what Hailo does, is they build components and computing components for edge PC, edge AI sphere, or that realm.
Yeah.
And in the article I was reading, they even said that yes, we want to compete against NVIDIA, and this is where we're competing against them, which is true, because NVIDIA with their Blackwell or whatever, they might be at like 2,000 tops, but it's like, okay, that's very expensive. This is a $70 thing that anybody who wants to get into hobby or just do stuff for their home or build out little, fun devices. Fantastic.
My first thought on that, Jimmy, went to people around my old neighborhood, I should say, does Halloween very, very well. And so I dabbled. I built some stuff. I've done some projection mapping. I've had some fun with it, but by no means am I at like some upper level of animatronics or whatever. But the first thing I thought of is like somebody's going to deploy this by October if it's available, and their Halloween things are going to be interacting with people because they're going to be using whatever the capabilities are at that point. Obviously it's not going to be the same as just using ChatGPT.
Yeah, no, you can totally build a chat bot on that tiny Raspberry Pi computer now.
Yep.
It'll be interesting. It'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Turn your house into a haunted house. People walk by. Then the lights turn into like angry lights. Like, what are you doing? I mean, it's endless possibilities.
Oh no! Look, it's a pirate, right? And like, what?
Ooh, I like that idea, Beth. A mocking, sarcastic Raspberry Pi that just makes fun of people's. And I want them to make fun of like 5-year-olds, costumes. You know what I mean? Like, I want deep digs. Yeah.
Do not use AI.
I want the parents being like, sick burn.
I use AI to make fun of 5-year-olds.
Listen, we all have our things that make us happy, and taking a sick dig at a kid for their costume that they made at home, why not? Okay, well, that was obviously one of them, and we kind of jumped into one of the stories here. And like you said, it's sort of like the other end of NVIDIA. NVIDIA also had quite a few announcements come out as well. I actually watched a video. It showed up on my YouTube TV, which, by the way, this is a great time to remind you that we have 981 subscribers on YouTube, and we would love it if you would help us be that last 19 so we can get over 1,000. Just quick point out there. But I was watching my own YouTube TV, and on came NVIDIA, and it was talking about their digital twins, their digital like multiverse, and what they're doing. It was very, very cool because I love this idea that when you're training robots, that we're at a point where we can create these multiverse type scenarios, and the robots can be trained digitally in these multiverse over thousands of iterations, whether it's they showed PT, like people doing physical therapy. They showed robots picking things up, walking, all your different types of robot needs and stuff like that, that have actions to them, and how they were training them over and over and over again with human intervention and human help on it. But it was being done basically inside a computer and then being released to like running it on the actual physical robot itself. And I just think that has so many implications, obviously, if these iterations can be done in a digital world or a metaverse, if you will, before they actually get, and then the robot basically has all the knowledge it needs and says, yeah, well, I may not have physically moved through space 1,000,000 times, but I have done it virtually. And so I understand the roles and jobs and all that kind of what I need to do. So anyway, that was another, but there was several other NVIDIAs. There was the other ones you guys wanted to touch on from them. That was the one that stuck out to me.
NVIDIA, if you own an NVIDIA stock, you're getting the benefit of Jensen Huang's treasure chest investments in lots of other AI companies. So they'll either be, investments that simply provide a return, or they'll be incorporated ultimately into the productive suite of tools that NVIDIA offers across the spectrum. We talk a lot about NVIDIA being a chip company, but it also does all the other aspects of it. So it's probably worth a full show to say, what is NVIDIA doing? Just how many facets to the NVIDIA empire are there? Well, they made a $50 million investment in 12 labs. Now, you might have heard of 11 labs, which is 11 labs is all about audio and cloning audio, probably the very best, the most advanced one. Well, 12 labs, no relation, but 12 labs picked a good name, very memorable, not confused at all with 11 labs, because it's one more. Goes to 12.
It's like 5-minute abs instead of 6-minute abs. I don't know. It's a little, I'd be a little upset if I was 11 labs, but keep going.
Right. Anyway, they're focused on AI search and analysis of video, which is big, right? Because we're video, like the Daily AI Show is video. If we wanted to search and analyze everything that we've ever put up there in video, this company would be able to do that. And you can imagine that the level of AI performance against, zillions of pixels like that is a little harder than just the waveform analysis of a voice print.
Right.
I've actually tried this. So I got off the wait list, and it's actually not bad. If you upload it, you can do the text to video, but I think the best part of this is search in the video and classify. And it does like I would say 60-70% job of, recognizing. Obviously more complex is harder, but you can classify it too. So it's really interesting thing to use. And I met, I think one of the investors or somebody who works there at a Google event of all things. And it's one of those things we were laughing. It's like, that's not even it. Hey, we can't even use that. But that's how he told me about, hey, have you checked out 12 Labs? Like, what's that? And then, so I don't know. I don't know if they've opened it up, but definitely check it out. It's 12labs.io to just try to either get on the wait list or start playing with it.
I would imagine with the video, the biggest thing, right, is like, this is what I assume is happening. And I'm sure I'm overly simplifying this, but like the idea that it's sort of scraping through the video and looking at almost like screenshots, breaking it down into frames per second, essentially. So we're high def. So what is that, Jyunmi? Are we 60 frames per second if we're doing this right now?
No, we're 30.
30. Okay. So
yeah, we are at HD though. Yeah.
Over a 35-minute show, whatever that it compounds to, right? But my point is, it seems like you're going to find higher levels of reliability in maybe videos where I'm outside and things are changing and there's things moving in and out of the camera, because like then it's easier for the language model to go, oh, there's a change. It went from black to white. It went from this to that, sunny to shady, whatever, right? It's like it's easier in a frame to say there's something different between frame 242 and 243. I would imagine, we'll probably be waiting a little bit of time until we get something that's like really, really usable for like what we're doing right now, which is, when did Karl start talking? What was Karl talking about? What was the time frame, the timestamp of Karl talking about this topic? That gets a little tricky, but like all things, we're just peering over the next hill. And if they're doing, like you said, Karl, you saw like a 60 or 70% success rate. How much longer are we really going to wait till 12 Labs or one of these companies nails it? And then it'll be some feature of StreamYard, who knows?
And when you are looking at this, I'm trying to think of like, okay, we've got text to video, then you can analyze the video. Whenever I remember when Rewind came out, because it's taking pictures of your screen. I feel like this is kind of the same thing. I don't know if it's different technology, and then what 12 Labs is doing, and then what eventually other labs will be doing is, are they doing it screen by screen, or are they actually reviewing it holistically? So I'm very curious about what exactly they're doing and how they're doing. Because if you take hey, I want you to, so if you've got a technology that's recalling every single thing that you did, then you have another technology that can replay. So isn't it essentially the recall feature is training the other feature to recreate a lot of the stuff? So I wouldn't be surprised if Microsoft next year said, oh, in addition to recall, you can retype in something that you want it played back on your computer. Like, do you see where you're kind of going? But maybe why would anyone want to type in, hey, I want to see what my screen was looking at 2D, but instead of that, but you can do something completely different with it. I just thought it'd be very interesting it's essentially training on what people are doing on their computers.
Yeah.
Day in, day out.
I can see reasons for that. So the way my memory works is I will remember that I did it on Wednesday and the screen was really pink.
Okay.
Right. And I was searching like wheat production. Right. Yeah. Like that's what I've got. So if we go back and I can just see like a quick brush through of Wednesday, or it can analyze those things, then that could be the section that I'm looking for. Like I can see that would be helpful. But I also think that in this context, what we are likely to see as we move forward is that this moves hand in hand with the agents, because it may be able to do that as a video analysis, but that may not be the best way. It may be that it goes through a time-stamped transcript to find it, right? All that's happening on the back end. All we know is that what it's recording the video and we're looking at the video. But I wouldn't be surprised if there are sub-processes, agentic sub-processes that happen faster and are less resource intensive.
Yeah.
So we're talking about 12 labs, but did you know there was 11 labs? And they came out with something too. They announced back in February that they were going to release a sound effects tool. They released it now. So you can go in there, spend some of your credits. I think they said like 150, it's considered 150 characters to generate a sound effect. And so if you want, if you want a drum beat, or if you want waves crashing or something along those lines, you can now add that into 11 labs or from 11 labs. So we got cloning of voices, cloning of sound effects. I'm ready to see the return of the radio play. What do you think? A little Flash Gordon or the Phantom going on? A whole new aspect of audiobooks?
Yeah.
I still listen on really long road trips, like some of the brand new audiobook, like more of like either sci-fi or comic books, whatever. I think one of my favorites is Wolverine and the Long Halloween. So that was multi. I think, remember 3 or 4 years ago, what was that podcast? Serial that came out, and there was a lot of people who were like, this is the golden age of podcasting or whatever that was. And a lot of different things came out. So the question is, we have, I don't know if I'm teeing this off for anybody, the showrunner that you can create your own series, but could you also create your own audio series too?
Sure.
Right?
Sure. The follow-up podcast, right?
Sure.
They do like a lot of show analysis or episode analysis, companion show, like was it AMC does this or A&E does this. So you can create your follow-up podcast. All you got to do is take the summary from the episode, right? Break down its salient points. You have your voice cloned. You can add in the sound effects to really sting any particular highlight points. And it's a content loop. I like it, Karl. Good idea.
So it's like, it's a new version of the director's cut. So it's not like, this is what I was thinking when I put this scene together. This is what I was thinking when I was thinking about the prompt that created the.
I like it. That's a deep cut for sure. I personally, look, when I never was a comic book fan as a kid, but I did love choose your own adventure books. And I definitely think there's going to be a return of choose your own adventure. Now we need to get to very low latencies and things like that. But if you can imagine, the cool thing about this book, I mean, there was a finite amount of paths you could take, but the coolest thing for a kid was like turn to page 52 if you want him to turn into the cave, and I'd be so excited to do it. And then as a kid who didn't really love reading, it was a great way to get me re-engaged, because they're like, what if I didn't go into the cave? And you could sort of reread the book, but in a different pattern. I always thought it was such an inventive idea. And so I would love to see that come back in some way. Again, there's some technology leaps that need to happen, but we're not too far off of that, where essentially whatever that choose your adventure, that next path doesn't actually exist until the moment the user selects whatever the variables are. And it literally creates it at the moment based on certain variables and parameters of the book, the overall story, where the third act is going, where the climax is in the story, things like this. So there's some parameters, but essentially if I did it, Beth did it, and Andy did it, and we all chose the same paths, we should still all get a slightly different sound effect. We should all get a slightly different variation of it or whatever. And then that would be fun for like kids and book clubs and stuff, or adults too, to say like, well, what happened when your guy went into it? Like, whoa, I ran into a werewolf. Like, oh, I didn't have a werewolf. It was crazy, but I did have a mummy, and like, what did the mummy do? And he's, and the werewolf howled, like, it's so cool to be able to think of this stuff with like low latency, and what we'll be able to do almost in real time. And that's just another idea with it,
I don't know who I was listening to about whether it's Disney or one of the studios, they can license these characters that you can use. So it's like, hey, I want to license Wolverine and I want to create a story, like a cartoon or something that I want to watch. And it would be really, because we've all had these things like, you know, it'd be really cool is if this happened to this character, right? It's like, or a horror movie. It's like, this makes no sense. You know, it'd be really cool if we put like Optimus Prime in the movie Halloween. What would happen then, right? Something like that. So, but imagine all these companies being able to license, like, here's, I don't know, $20 a month or whatever to make this movie that I created. And then here's some guidelines. You can't do these things.
That's a great idea. You know, Brian's the master of movie mashups in AI.
So South Park.
We need to get back to the news, but I will just say this right now: when you're in your car and listening to a podcast on a long drive, I'm gonna be taking a family trip here in the next week or so, and I'll be in the car for 5 hours each way, let's say. And more than likely, my daughter will have her cans on. She'll be listening in the back and doing her thing. But just assume if podcasts go from one directional to bi-directional. And what I mean by that is how far off are we from having this choose your own adventure where there's a family story and it pauses and it uses Siri or whatever voice activation you want at that point, and it says, where do you want to go next? And the family goes and it goes like ding dong, ding dong, ding. And the family's like, I don't know. What do you guys think? I vote the werewolf in the cave, you know, and the kid in the back is like, not the werewolf, you know, go with the mummy, go with the mummy. Yeah. Ding dong, ding. All right, time's up. What's your choice? All right, we're going with mummy. Great choice. So the mummy was in the cave, and then it just keeps going. Like that's the future of a road trip for a family. That's another $1 million idea. Put it down. I've got another one. Label it. Put the tag on it. This is happening.
Yep.
But we should probably talk about the news that's happening.
So I want to circle back to NVIDIA for a second because they were involved in one of two major leaks. Like NVIDIA's emails got leaked and revealed that Elon Musk directed NVIDIA to ship 12,000 H100 GPUs that had been purchased by Tesla and ship them to X. Now, that on the surface of it's not a big deal. I mean, Elon Musk, as you know, the chief executive of both of those companies, probably made an optimizing decision, a correct one, that, you know, whatever had been done by Tesla needed to be over there. And I'm sure that those two companies coordinated really well about, you know, how to cover the costs of that shift and so on. But it also implies that in the Elon Musk universe, you know, there's individual companies, and if you own stock in Tesla, you're more interested in seeing Tesla get advantage than you are X. And Elon Musk can use his leverage and authority in those situations to move things around. So NVIDIA accidentally released some emails that exposed that this had happened, and this has caused a little bit of a kerfluffle among some people. I don't particularly think it was probably a smart decision, you know, for various reasons. And then the other big leak was Google leaked 2,500 pages. Google didn't leak it, but Google documents around their SEO algorithms were released. Now, let me just quickly say how important the SEO algorithms are. There's an army, there is an industry of people who are focused on SEO and are using AI to improve SEO. And what they're really in this battle, they're trying to figure out how to manipulate the search algorithms that Google uses to elevate things to the first and foremost positions on this organic search engine results page. So when you type in a request or a query, you want your links to show up, and the SEO, search engine optimization algorithms, are the things that determine what's going to be shown and what isn't. Well, that's always been highly secretive, and it's not been obvious what is going on in the actual algorithm. But these 2,500 pages have a lot of discussion and revelation around, you know, what's actually contributing to position. And I can tell you from my experience, that, when Google changed its algorithm way back when I was working at Merchant Circle, they made an algorithm update that basically killed Merchant Circle's position by degrading the content that Merchant Circle had used as its SEO strategy. And they just, Google figured out a way to determine that content farms, and there was one done, a huge content farm called Demand Media, that was just churning out content in order to trick the SEO algorithm into presenting their content rather than, more authoritative content. And so content farms were killed by Google's efforts to really truly determine what is good quality content and what is not. Now there's a lot more information available to SEO people, and that's a whole industry in its own right.
Nice. Yep. So I have two stories. It would not be a news day if we did not talk about OpenAI. OpenAI is making moves every week. This week, they're making moves in terms of news. They licensed Vox Media and The Atlantic, and they also launched a global accelerator program. It's called the Newsroom AI Catalyst, and it's going to help people in newsrooms use the tools of AI to help write, to help research, those sorts of things. Like it's a real partner program. And one of the early ideas when things started to bubble up about what OpenAI was training on and did they have the rights to do that? One of the ideas that Paul Reitzer talked about again long ago on a podcast was that if OpenAI was smart, they would get in on the ground floor and help train journalists and like engage in media because that industry needs help and needs money, and OpenAI needs content and well-written content, well-researched content. So this may be a little bit of what we're seeing as that kind of idea come to fruition. The other news story that I have is Amazon adding a personal investigator, an investigator like a product investigator, so that there is AI looking at your order while it's packed to make sure that it's not damaged, and so it doesn't come to you damaged. And that is happening in the U.S. and is going to roll out to other countries as that gets clarified. I do think that that's going to be a really interesting process as Amazon starts to really implement more and more AI. This seems to be AI in a quality control way. The next thing is very likely AI in a packing way, and so maybe that's another automation. Maybe that's another robotic kind of thing. Like we're really seeing Amazon's always been using AI to try to get more efficient and squeeze more profit out. And this is just the next stage of that. But it is an interesting stage because it's using vision.
Yeah. I agree with you. It starts in the warehouses, and then it will quickly move itself onto all their Rivian trucks. So not only will you have vision as when it left damaged or undamaged in the warehouse, you'll have vision as whether it was damaged on the truck and at what point, and what did they already take pictures of it when it reaches your house. I would imagine the return side of Amazon has to be a huge hole to fix, right? Because there's so many different reasons why you might return something, and then they go to those secondary markets, and then there's all sorts of markets that pop up where you can just buy gently used returned items, right? They get like pushed off or whatever. But yeah, I agree with you, Beth. I mean, like, look, the vision capabilities of these models is going to get to a certain point, and back to what we were talking about Pi, not that they would use a Raspberry Pi in Amazon, but to the point that they're really getting to these edge computing type situations. So sure, in the big factory, that totally makes sense. Coming soon to a truck near you, an Amazon truck near you, probably one that can look at the packages on the shelves in the back of the truck and know what happened at that point as well, because that could really allow Amazon obviously to defend themselves, as opposed to just a customer saying, "Oh no, it was crushed when it got here." and they're going to be able to very quickly use AI and backtrack and go, no, it wasn't. We delivered it correctly, and that's not on us. That kind of thing. You mentioned OpenAI, so I just want to mention too, because I think this was in the last week, but forgive me if this is a repeat. But OpenAI in the same day had introduced OpenAI for nonprofits as well as OpenAI for education. And so I think those are just like news and media, another way where OpenAI is trying to work that. We talked to Amanda Bickerstaff several months ago and interviewed her about what she's doing in education with AI. And I am sure she has some thoughts on, is this OpenAI trying to help educators? Is this OpenAI trying to manipulate or control in some way? I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. Or are they truly there to help and push education forward? Same with nonprofits, obviously. But I do like to see overall that they're, nonprofits. I just spent, I just spent a whole hour at Feeding Tampa Bay's brand new facility in Tampa. Not part of today's topic, but I will just say 180,000 square feet, brand new facility, and what they're doing. And I'm probably going to have an opportunity to go down there and talk about AI with their folks and stuff like that. But, when you look at these nonprofits, and they clearly could use a little extra help when it comes to using some of these AI tools, because, a lot of times there's just one person trying to manage all of that at a nonprofit, and they need more help to do that. I think AI is going to be a way that we can turn one into many, for a lot of these. So hopefully that's a good thing to come.
Nice.
Okay. Any other big news? I mean, we have a few minutes here.
Karl,
I do have one. It's a video. It came out yesterday. The one of the OpenAI researchers, Leopold Aschenbrenner, actually had a really good clip where he was talking about, AGI, China, and so on. So I really wanted to play that, because I think that really opens up a lot of share audio checkbox. Okay, so I can share a screen. I think I'm going to share the tab, and here it is.
I do think it is incredibly important that these clusters are in the United States.
And why does it matter it's in the US?
Look, I think there's some people who are, trying to build clusters elsewhere. And, there's like a lot of free flowing Middle Eastern money that's trying to build clusters elsewhere. I think this comes back to the sort of like national security question we talked about earlier. Like, would you do the Manhattan Project in the UAE, right? And I think basically like putting the clusters, I think you can put them in the US, you can put them in sort of like allied democracies. But I think once you put them in kind of like, dictatorships, authoritarian dictatorships, you kind of create this, irreversible security risk, right? So, one, cluster is there, much easier for them to exfiltrate the weights. They can like literally steal the AGI, the superintelligence. Like they got a copy of the, of the atomic bomb, and they just got a direct replica of that. And it makes it much easier to them. Weird ties to China. You can ship that to China. So that's a huge risk. Another thing is they can just seize the compute, right? Like maybe right now they just think of this. In general, I think people, I think the issue here is people are thinking of this as like, ChatGPT, big tech product clusters. But I think the clusters being planned now, 3 to 5 years out, like, it will be the like AGI superintelligence clusters. And so anyway, so like when things get hot, they might just seize the compute.
So there's a lot that was actually in that interview where he was talking about, I don't know if you caught the last bit. He really believes, because of the exponential growth of where the things are going, and we're talking, he says 3 to 5 years, which is insane. And obviously that goes contrary to someone like Jan LeCun, who says that doesn't make any sense because, AGIs, LLMs can't research. But what was interesting is he was let go from OpenAI because of, like, according to him, he raised the national security issue about China, and that clip didn't play it, but like how China was potentially, they are going to be, in his mind, going to try, it's like the full state, the ministry or whatever they are, whatever the Chinese foreign intelligence or whatever it is, going to try to full court press, try to get that technology. So it is a massive race, and like as he said, it's the US and its allies versus China, maybe Russia, and it's a full blown world race for who gets AGI and beyond. So I thought it was a very interesting thing, because this thing, Leopold like pretty much blew up across X, and everybody was talking about from a national security issue, AGI, and a lot of things, especially from someone who is an ex OpenAI researcher.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
In a related story, there was an open letter released by a group of current and former frontier AI company scientists. So, like Jeffrey Hinton and things like that. And the open letter is just called a right to warn about advanced artificial intelligence. And so this is I guess this is a call out to have whistleblower type protections for employees to freely warn about or express their concerns about safety in AI.
Right.
And so they have like 4. They're talking about establishing 4 specific protections that they're talking about, and one is they're not going to enforce any agreement that prohibits disparagement or criticism of a company. The company will facilitate verifiably anonymous process so that they can submit these concerns. They ask that the companies will support a culture of open criticism so that they can have an open discussion, because I believe this all comes from a lot of former OpenAI employees or other company employees that have been fired because they're discussing. Just like Karl was talking about the previous clip, they were just it's like, oh, we don't, the company does not support you discussing these kinds of issues. And then finally, the 4th one was the company will not retaliate against the current or former employees who publicly share risk-related confidential information or other processes that have failed. So these 4 base protections is what they're looking for when it comes to specifically talking about AI, because it doesn't exist. There hasn't been a culture of that at this point. So this, I think, is their first expression of trying to get that established.
So it's an interesting thing, because what they're protesting against, and it's actually their anonymous current employees in OpenAI. There's a former Anthropic person, there's Google DeepMind, but the majority of people who are listed in this are connected to OpenAI. But there is some interesting kind of pushback on this, because this is where AI crosses the abilities of AI and what you're developing crosses like typical manufacturing and corporate stuff, because you can't while you're still working for a manufacturing place say that you think the product is crap without consequences to that. Now, if you're there's whistleblower protection, right? If it's crap and therefore it's a safety issue or those sorts of things, those protections already exist. Part of the consequences of doing this in this context is that you don't get to stay paid, right? You lose your you lose the money that you have earned in this context when the software that you're worried about, or the abilities that you're worried about, the AGI that you're worried about, or the next thing comes to fruition, and you get a ton of money from that. So it's a complicated kind of thing, and I think in traditional manufacturing or traditional IP, that's a little more clear, because what we're building in this, me and all my buddies who are building the AGI, what people are building in this context is predicted, but not guaranteed, and not guaranteed when, and the results of that are also unknown. So it's an interesting story for sure.
Yeah, I think it comes from the general sense or narrative right now is that, or at least what these former employees are expressing is, oh, I talked about these possible concerns in my company, now I'm fired. That's what seems to be the narrative of what's going on. So I think that's what that's what the fire is under them in putting out something like this open letter. So please pay attention. I need to be able to talk about this and not worried that I'm going to get fired for talking about, hey, this could be a safety issue.
It's very funny because Jan LeCun pretty much like dismisses every single one of these people. Like, safety. We're talking like, but the tech isn't going to be this thing that you're thinking about. So that's, according to him, that's like that. Why are you even concerned about that? Because there's no way we're going to get there. So it's too, like, there's a dichotomy of his group. They're like, no, it's not going to be, humans are going to be the ones that are going to build that into it. And these systems can't do that versus, hey, we're going on a path that, this could happen. So, and on X, it's Zoomers versus accelerators and what, there's that fight between the two. I think though, we kind of know as long as Sam Altman is the CEO, that pedal is going to be pushed. And because there is the board tried to fire him, didn't. Now he has a board that is, I would imagine, fully supportive. I don't think there's going to be any pause or stop, regardless of any employee said, well, we shouldn't. Yeah, that's fine. But you're going to see an acceleration regardless. And I don't think the government is too slow to regulate. And I don't think anyone's going to self-regulate. So I think it's an interesting thing where everyone's still pushing. And there will be safety concerns, but it's like, what does that actually mean? And how do you actually implement that?
But that's true of Zuckerberg as well as as well as Elon, right?
Yeah, they're not going to stop.
And it's probably true of Anthropic and DeepMind. We just don't hear them in the same context of that story. Yeah. Google may not, because like there's so many names, like they're just much bigger. And Anthropic is kind of quiet about this stuff, but I suspect.
But they're doing the exact same thing. Yeah. It's just, oh yes, we're a safety company. Wink. We got the people, but we're gonna be releasing models at the same time. So okay, fine.
Right.
Okay. Before we wrap, there's one big story that we haven't mentioned, which is yesterday there was a widespread set of outages in multiple different AI services. That's all you need to know. There's one more important, news feature. We've talked about interpretation of whale sounds using AI. Well, University of Michigan has developed AI tools that analyze dog barks so that you can know your dog's breed, its age, its sex, and whether it's being playful or aggressive. Take that home.
Okay. But the dog isn't telling you its age and breed. You're not having a conversation with you.
It's one of those interesting, attendant data that can be interpreted by AI that we could never figure out from a dog's bark.
Very cool.
Well, let me finish on one last, because we're definitely on time here. Let's finish on one last piece of news. And that's that our first newsletter is coming out this Sunday. So Cisco actually asked in the comments. Thank you, Cisco, for bringing that up. Because we definitely want people to know, yes, if you've subscribed already, we do have it on our back end. We haven't exactly set it up where you get a confirmation email and 2-factor auth, but it's coming. This is a process and you guys are along for the ride. So if you go to our website, dailyaishow.com, which is what I have on the screen right now, and then you go join our community, or you just scroll down, very simple page here, very simple splash page. You can join right here and subscribe. And as soon as you do that, you're going to see a little notification on the screen that says, thanks for signing up. We will get to the point where we have an email, but we're just focusing hard on getting this first newsletter out this Sunday. And then our goal is to have a new newsletter coming out weekly. We think we're going to stay on Sundays, but obviously we will adjust and adapt if we hear differently. But we like the idea of having live shows Monday through Friday and still providing some new content for our listeners on Sunday. Now, I had said initially that we are going to have some cool perks and stuff like that. I mean, we've grown so fast on our list. And I think initially I said, the first 100. I think this is what we should do. If you sign up before June 9th, when the first newsletter, so if you're on the list before we press send on the first newsletter, we're gonna send you something a little extra, a little bump for saying thank you for being one of our very first newsletter subscribers. So thank you to all the people who've done it, like Cisco and others who have already signed up. But if you're interested in getting our newsletter, we think we have some really cool angles and different parts and pieces to it that are different than what you're seeing in a normal newsletter. Obviously, we're not trying to recreate what everybody else is doing. So you can sign up. Just go to dailyaishow.com. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about the top 5 tools that are transforming our lives. So we'll all have our 5, and then we'll compare and contrast to those. And then on Friday, we're going to do our bi-weekly review where we recap all of this stuff. Of course, next week is coming up with the Apple event. We'll be talking about that on Tuesday, and we have a whole bunch of other topics as well for next week. So keep on coming back. Head over to the website. Also, lots of asks here, but if you're on YouTube and you're watching us on YouTube, I'll refresh it right now. We are still at 981. So we have 19 more people to reach 1,000. That's a big milestone for us. So newsletter, subscribe to us wherever you might be listening or watching us. That's always greatly appreciated. Thank you to everybody. We will see you again tomorrow. Bye.
Aloha.